You just let us know when it started. Are we good, Paul?
Just shout go.
Could IT just look at that it's displaying my telephone number?
Not all of it. Only 4 digits were showing. The last 2 and 2 out of the area code.
Just while we're waiting for Paul to confirm that we're good to go, can I just remind everybody to make sure they're on mute when they're not speaking, just to reduce the background noise. And if you do wish to speak, raise your hand and we'll let Chair know.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the owners' meeting tonight. And it's my first chairing of this particular meeting, so welcome to everybody, and welcome to the backroom staff for getting us underway. Glitches come, and we're getting used to them now. Somebody's not muted. Right, we begin by well, we don't need to do emergency evacuation procedure because you're all at home. So I think we can skip that one.
Yeah.
Apologies for absence, please. Have we got any?
We have apologies from councillors Cousins, Keel and Wass.
Thank you. Those are noted. Next is minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of October on 2020, pages 3 to 8 in our minute tonight. Can I have someone to move and second, please, that we accept these minutes? I'll move them from the chair.
I'll second them, Chair.
Thank you.
I will do the vote by a roll call. So if I shout out the names, if you could just say for or against. So for the minutes, Councillor Braxton.
Sorry, for.
Councillor Garbutt-Moore.
For.
Councillor King. Councillor King. Councillor King, for or against? You're on mute at the moment. I'll carry on and come back to Councillor King. Councillor Middleton?
For.
Councillor Oxley?
For.
Councillor Rain? Councillor Rain?
Sorry, for.
Councillor Raper?
For.
And Councillor King? He's still on mute.
Can you hear me, Councillor King? Can you vote, please, for or against? Apparently, you're still muted.
Still muted, Councillor King. Can you unmute Councillor King, Will, or not?
No, I can only do the opposite. I can mute him if I want to see if I can unmute.
Can we indicate for or against? Can we indicate for, Councillor King?
Could you press the hand or something?
Councillor King, could you raise your hand if you are for the minutes?
Can I just say he wasn't on the scrutiny committee then, so he wouldn't be for them because he wasn't present.
You go with abstention, Chair. Okay, that's 6 votes for and 1 abstention. Chair, you're muted.
Thank you. I hadn't realised. Well, we're on urgent business now, so I think we'll deal with the item that we've been alerted to, item 13. If we can take it now. Do you want to say anything about this, Anton, at the present time?
No, I don't think so. I think the items explained in the agenda that it was called in by Chair of Overview and Scrutiny, but the chairman of P&R has agreed to consider at the next meeting, the next committee meeting, which will take place on the 12th of November. I'm not sure we need to say any more about that. We do have Andrew Ellis on the line.
Okay, thank you. To my mind, if P&R are going to deal with this issue from now on, from what a conversation I have had with that chairman of that committee, he's keen to get this into action and into practice as soon as possible. So I'm keen that it goes ahead and gets to this next committee meeting at P&R and then is implemented and instigated. And it shortens the time, and it's only a few days away, really. It's not that far away. And I think if we go for another meeting, I think that is wasting everybody's time, including the public's money. So I'm all for letting this go to the next P&R and become part of our documentation that we are acknowledging in council. So propose that we do this.
Chair, Councillor Braxton would like to speak.
Okay.
Yes, just a couple of things that I'd like to point out. The first is that this has to, obviously, it would have to go to P&R within 10 working days, and I don't think there are 10 working days. But also, I think this needs to go to the full council because it is regarding a change of policy. So therefore we can't approve it. It needs to go back to full council because it was a decision originally made there. So in view of the rain report, it should be something that the whole council should consider and approve.
Thank you for that. Anybody else wish to comment? Anybody else wish to comment, please?
Councillor Oxley would like to speak, Chair.
Isn't that what's going to happen when it goes back to P&R?
I understand that they will make a decision, and then it will go and become part of our documentation to be taken note of as council. I think it's a part A if it goes that way. So it wouldn't necessarily go back to full council, but full council has said that they want this doing, and Scrutiny were the people that have done it. We've done it, and we're now sending it back in to be actioned. As far as I'm concerned, I'm quite content with what's happened with it myself, and I was very keen for this to be undertaken and come to a resolution. We have a resolution, and I think now is a time, and Chair of P&R is keen to get this into place as soon as possible, from the conversation I've had with him on this particular subject. He wants that documentation to be live quickly, so that it becomes part of our res d'etre this year, not next.
Chair, Councillor Middleton would like to speak.
Okay.
I'm with Councillor Braxton on this. I wasn't sure that we'd agreed the final document. I do think it needs to go back to full council rather than being decided by P&R.
And Councillor Braxton would like to speak.
Delays things greatly as such, but yeah. Okay, Councillor Braxton, I'll let you come back. You're muted. You're muted, Councillor Braxton.
Sorry. P&R also aren't going to meet within the next 10 working days. I just feel that we can't approve this. You know, it is a matter for the whole council, not just to go back to P&R.
Chair.
Yes, carry on.
Yeah, is it? Can I ask Barry Khan to come in at this point and just comment from a kind of legal point of view, monitoring officer point of view?
I would be very much obliged. Yes, carry on.
Good evening, members. Hi, apologies, I'm a poor substitute. I'm Barry Khan. I'm the Assistant Chief Exec for North Yorkshire County Council, but I also act as a Deputy Monitoring Officer for Ryedale as well. So good evening, members. I think I may have be off message here, but I think the issue here is with regards to what actually is being approved. And I think there's some concern that there may be a proposal which removes members, for example, from a decision making as part of the appeal process. Well, I think if that is going to be the case, then I think there's already been a full council decision which referred to that, and therefore, if you're going up against that, you need to go back to full council. If, however, the decision isn't to remove members and to keep members involved in that process as a decision taker, then it can be a matter for P&R. So I think by referring it to P&R, getting clarity on what actually the decision is going to be and what you're deciding, I think will then determine the route of whether it needs to go back to full council or whether it will remain a P&R decision.
That's my understanding, that it's just this one particular point on members of council being able to have something referred to them, which happened in the past. I was a recipient of such, but I brick walls in a sense when it was passed to me. I want somewhere to go when I have something like this come to me, and I want somewhere for you to be able to go as members if someone comes to you with similar. And that's all this particular item is going to do. We have clarified the position on members being allowed and being involved in this particular process in this particular way. And I think the time for joy is finished. It's time for putting this into action, into place, so it can be relied on. And members of staff are watching this very keenly, and I think it will be somewhat disappointed, in inverted brackets, if we go and prevaricate any much longer.
Chair, Councillor Oxley would like to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Oxley. Yes.
Chair, I completely agree with what Barry's just said. That's exactly where we are. There's no disagreement about this, and dragging heels and taking things through situations that don't need to be taken through is unnecessary. I propose we just accept and get moving on it. Thank you for that, Councillor Oxley. I have said that we should go and move this forward. Would you be prepared to second that? I certainly would. Thank you. Because more prevarication and chewing the fat on this one isn't doing anything any good, and it's just delaying things. We've been through the mill on this, and I think it's time that we
tidied it up and put it in a neat folder ready for use by staff and ourselves as well, if we're called upon. So I think we need to go and put this to the vote now as to whether it goes forward or not.
Chair, Will would like to speak.
Okay.
Just to be clear, the action that members could take is to take no further action in relation to the calling, so that it would go to the next meeting of P&R, which is outlined on the agenda. So rather than doing anything with it, there would be no further action taken in relation to the calling.
Sounds an amenable way forward. I so propose that we take no further action. Are you with that on with that one, Will?
Yeah, that's exactly what we need to do, John.
Yeah. Okay.
Further action.
Okay.
Can we go to the vote on that then, please?
We can. Yep.
Or again?
Councillor Brackstone.
Against.
Councillor Garbutt-Moore.
For.
Councillor King.
Sorry, I'm going to have to abstain because I've just had to delete Teams and rejoin now, so I'm going to have to abstain because I haven't followed the course of that conversation.
Okay. Councillor Middleton.
Against.
Councillor Oxley.
Sorry, for.
Councillor Rain.
Abstain.
Councillor Raper.
For.
That's 3 votes for, 2 against and 2 abstentions, Chair.
Thank you. It's no further action in that case, isn't it? Next item on the agenda, declarations of interest. I have none. Has any other member got a declaration of interest? If you have, speak up. If you don't, keep quiet, and then we can move it along.
No raised hands, Chair.
Thank you. We'll move on. On to item 6 now is the Chair's announcement. So I want to give at this particular time a vote of thanks to the previous Chair of Review and Scrutiny, John Clark. I've known John for quite a long time now, ever since he first came onto council, and I've always been impressed greatly by his rhetoric, and sometimes exasperated by it at the same time, to varying degrees. He'd been a first-class advocate for this council, and I want to acknowledge that, if I may. And I'll also thank Councillor Braxton for the vice chairmanship as well at this particular time, for her contribution in that supporting role. It's been good to see the rapport between the two of them and how things have progressed and been moved along in the way that they have. So my thanks to them. I'd like that recorded, please.
No problem, Chair.
Unless anybody wants to, do we need to take a vote on that? I don't think so. I don't think anybody would disagree, and if you are going to disagree, speak up now.
No raised hands, Chair.
Thank you. We're on to item 7, Statement of Accounts, pages 9 to 168. We do have Anton with us. If you have any questions on this, I think it's a huge document, and I want to say something about that at a later time tonight. I have something, a thought that's come to my mind only this afternoon, reading through this documentation again, and we'll have to see what people think. So, do you want to make any statement at this time, Anton, or do you want to have any questions?
Just a couple of things. Firstly, to introduce it, this is the statement of accounts. I think people are aware, members are aware. Normally, you would have seen this in July, but the whole kind of timetable for finalising accounts was delayed due to COVID nationally. So, in fact, these do not have to be approved until the end of November. So they come here to Audit Committee, as they always do, and then go on to Policy and Resources for final approval. The other thing to say is that we do have the external auditors in attendance at the meeting, and clearly a major. They have gone through the bulky statement of accounts to make sure it's right, firstly, and have provided any comments for any kind of amendments that need to be made before it's finally signed off. And also another part of the report is their what's called the ISA 260 document, which is their findings. So it's probably worth handing over to either Gareth or to Lena from Grant Thornton, who are the external auditors, and asking if they would like to say anything, if that's okay.
Fine. Anything for you two gentlemen?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, if members could turn to page 133 of 304 in the pack, that takes you through to the exec summary and headlines arising from our audit of Ryedale. As Anton said, this is our sort of key document of the year, summarising the key messages coming out of our audit. We discussed and agreed a draft version of this report a week or so ago with Anton and senior members of his team. So I'll probably just talk through the first couple of pages, and then I'll hand over to my colleague Talina to perhaps draw out some of the key messages in the rest of the report. But on that headline message page there, on page 133, you'll see COVID-19 flagged up as a significant audit risk, and clearly COVID has significantly altered the audit timetable. So as Anton said, it's moved from the end of July to the end of November, and it's undoubtedly led to audits taking longer to complete. Myself and my team, we've all been working remotely since March, rather than in an audit room on site in Malton, so that inevitably adds time to it. And similarly, the finance team as well have been working remotely. Having said all of that, I think our working relationship with Anton and his team remains very strong, and we've had a lot of support and engagement from the finance team in order to get through the audit with a view to signing off next month after Policy and Resources Committee. In terms of the financial statements, as I say, we've been completing this work since July. We've identified some presentation and disclosure amendments to the financial statements, but importantly, and this is a key point for members, none of those adjustments impact on the council's general fund position or the usable reserves that are available to the council. We've also raised a couple of recommendations from our work this year, and they're in the action plan at Appendix A. And then members who were on the committee last year will recall we raised quite a few recommendations in our first year of audit back in 18-19, and we followed those up with the latest findings, and they're included at Appendix B. As Anton's mentioned, the audit's substantially complete. There are a few areas where we're finalising our work between now and Policy and Resources, but in essence, I'm anticipating issuing a clean, unqualified audit opinion next month with the inclusion of what's known as an emphasis of matter paragraph in relation to the valuation of the council's land and buildings. And just to be really clear on that, that's not an issue unique to Ryedale. That's something that's come out of the impact of the pandemic on the valuation of assets. The Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors issued an edict to their members to highlight a material uncertainty on their valuations this year, and Ryedale, along with other local authorities and NHS bodies, have included that in their accounts, and we'll just be drawing that to readers' attention in our opinion as well next month. There's one key element of our audit work that remains outstanding, and that's the assurance letter that the auditor of North Yorkshire Pension Fund sends us. Pensions are a key risk in relation to our audit work, so we need that letter of assurance before we can give our opinion. It was anticipated that would be coming out at the end of this month. However, Talina and I received an email just today actually to say that that's now likely to be the middle of November. So it's going to be on or around that Policy and Resources Committee date. On page 134, where we highlight value for money arrangements, again, members on the committee last year will recall that we actually qualified the council's value for money conclusion last year, principally in relation to the lack of risk management and financial reporting that had taken place in the early part of 18-19 and indeed in 17-18. And we recognised that new arrangements had been put in place in the second half of last year, but they weren't fully embedded for the full financial year. Obviously, that's continued this year. They now are embedded, and we're in a position now to give a clean value for money conclusion next month. And just to confirm, in terms of statutory duties, I've not had to exercise any of my statutory powers as your external auditor. There have been no public objections to the accounts when they went on public deposit in the summer. So there's nothing to report in respect of that work. So I'll just hand over to Lena at this point, Chair, just to maybe draw out one or two key points around our audit of some of the key risk areas and the value for money work. And then obviously myself and Talina will be more than happy to try and answer any questions that members may have.
Yeah, thank you, Gareth. Thank you, Chair. So if I'll go through, some of the, key, work and the findings. And I think Gareth highlighted, the key summary of our work in his, summary just a while ago. So on page 135 of the pack is basically it's talking about our materiality, which has not changed. So that's a key sort of a threshold that we conduct our audit, and the key message is it has not changed. And it includes some of the outstanding work that we need to perform before, Gareth issues the opinion, mid-November. Going to page 136, Chair. So these next few pages will cover the significant risks we identified, which is one was COVID-19. And the key point on that page is obviously that has an impact on this year's land and buildings valuation that Gareth mentioned. And as a result, there's something called, emphasis of matter in our opinion. Other than that, obviously, our team and Ryedale's finance team and Anton's, colleagues worked well to, achieve where we are at the moment. And there are no other findings from that work. Page 137, Chair, it's obviously our standard risks about, revenue recognition and work we do on management override of controls. So again, Chair, there's nothing to report from our detailed work on those areas. Page 138 is one of the other key significant risks on land and buildings valuation. And the key point arising from that is also linked to, COVID impact, where, we are raising an emphasis of matter in our audit opinion. Other than that, we have not identified any issues that we need to report to you for this committee. And pension liability, again, Gareth mentioned that we are waiting, it's another significant risk. We are waiting for the pension fund auditor Deloitte's, work that we have requested back in April. And when we receive that by mid-November, we'll perform certain work in order to, give that opinion. So that's only sort of outstanding work we have in that area. So the next couple of pages, Chair, I'm not going to go into detail. It's sort of key estimates of land and buildings valuations and pension liability. The key outcome is there are we concur with the management assumptions and estimates in these areas, especially the inclusion of material uncertainty in terms of land and buildings valuation, which is reported in that statement of accounts that it's been presented today. Going concern is something that we need to assess whether there are any material uncertainties for that is about 12 months at least from the signing of the opinion in terms of going concern. So our work highlighted, we've gone through various reports that Anton has provided, and we know that the revised MTFS will be presented next month, and we'll have a look at draft report of that. But our work has not highlighted any concerns in terms of going concern for Ryedale. And we are happy to take any questions, but the report says the work we have done and the outcome, subject to the revised seeing the revised MTFS. So pages 144 and 145, it's the key messages is that we need to communicate. I think I'll highlight one thing on page 144. Well, obviously, the remote working, obviously, this is a unique period that we are performing these audits remotely, and that will further continue for 2021 year as well. So we'll discuss those matters with Anton and the team, how we will approach and what things have gone well and what we can improve on. So that's a key one that we need to communicate. And also, once we issue the opinion, we can close this audit because there's no impact on whole of government accounts certification because Ryedale is below the threshold. Section 3 of the report is value for money. I'll take you to page 148. Which is one of our significant risks that Gareth mentioned, and the rationale why we took that as a significant risk because of past information we had when we started the audit last year and continuation of that this year. So in summary, we found that there are regular reports, agenda items in terms of budget monitoring and reporting, and it's a key item every audit committee we've been attended to, and extensively sort of covering what's happening against the budget and the actions taken, and also the risk register. Again, I can see agenda item today. It's been continuing throughout the year in 1920. So that's the reason that Gareth mentioned that the value for money conclusion that Gareth is proposing to make is clean. There's no qualification like last year. That's a key outcome of this work on page 148. Then page 149 is independence. Again, I want to highlight that everyone worked in this audit is independent of Ryedale Council, and Grant Thornton as a firm is very serious about the ethics and independence, and everyone needs to formally confirm that they're independent. So that's a key message I want to give in that particular page. Appendix A, action plan. I'm not going to go into detail. These actions plans have been agreed with management, and very happy to take any questions on those recommendations. And Gareth mentioned follow-up of previous year's recommendations. I think again pretty much everything has been completed, subject to some work in progress. Again, management has commented what's going on with those. So I'm not going to go in any detail, but happy to take any questions on that. So that comes to page 158, adjustments. As Gareth mentioned, there are no adjustments as part of our audit that impact the reserves of the council. All the others are all disclosed adjustments that's reported in page 158. Chair. Fees, it's Appendix D. Again, obviously mentioned that we've discussed this with Anton, that COVID impact of remote working is generally it's taking more time for management, the finance staff to provide info, and again much more time for auditors to complete the audit. So as a result, the potential there'll be more additional fees that we'll discuss that needs to be approved. Key is approved by Public Sector Audit Appointments Limited, and we'll obviously, once the audit is completed, we'll discuss that with Anton and provide the details on that. So that's my sort of presentation on the sort of slightly more detailed aspect of this report, and Gareth and I are quite happy to take any questions, Chair.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for the very detailed report. And it is a fairly hefty document when you get hold of it in paper form. Looking at it on the screen, you don't get the magnitude of it in a sense. Once you've got it on the old-fashioned paper, it doesn't have to make you sit up and take notice, so to speak. So thank you for your presentation. Any questions from anybody, first of all? Anybody got any concerns?
There's no raised hands, Chair.
Right.
Oh, sorry, and Anton.
Anton, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a question. Obviously, it was more just a comment, really. I mean, I'm just picking up on the points that the external auditors have made about working with me and the team. I really should put on public record the team, Michelle, Mandy, Kieran, Lindsay, and all of the others they're the key people who do this. And they're on. Some of them are on this call as well, available to answer any of the difficult questions that I can. But I do really want to thank them, because it's their work, hard work, and perseverance that get this done.
Yeah, we'd echo that as well, Chair. Absolutely, we're grateful to Mandy and Michelle and Kieran and the team for their engagement with our team. I
would possibly dare to go and challenge Mandy.
Chair, Councillor Oxley and Councillor Rain would like to speak.
Okay, Councillor Oxley, please.
Thanks, Chair. I think you're unlikely to get many detailed questions. Just one thought, given what's been said about the impact of COVID and the fact that nobody knows where we're going, the question really is, have we learnt in this process, have we learnt things that if this does continue, it will make things easier if we have to continue under these circumstances? Or is it just a question of more of the same?
Yeah, I'll kick off that, if I may, Chair. I think we've certainly learned a lot this year as auditors. I mean, we learned a lot from the NHS audit experience in sort of April, May and June that we took into the local authority audits that kicked off in July. And as I say, I think that there is a lot more audit work to do in a local authority audit compared to an NHS one. And hence why, the government acknowledged that by extending the deadline effectively by 4 months from the end of July to the end of November. I think what's worked well is, the technologies such as Teams, Skype. My team's been able to liaise with Michelle and Mandy to observe things where ordinarily we'd sit at the side of Mandy or Michelle and observe them physically downloading information so that it wasn't manipulated in any way that we could then go away and test. Clearly that audit requirement is still there, but we're no longer there in person. So, we've used technology to get round that in order to document sufficiently what we need to do in terms of complying with auditing standards. I think added to that, Talina and our colleague Jack Walsh, who leads our work, they've had regular dialogue with Mandy and Michelle and Kieran throughout the last few months. And I think, the fact that, the audit is virtually complete. And as Talina mentioned, we've not got any significant adjustments impacting on the real bottom line of the council, and a relatively small list of presentational changes, does, give you that assurance that the finance team produced a good set of accounts and good supporting working papers, and we've managed to get through it, sort of a month ahead of the deadline in effect. I think in terms of your question around, is it going to be more of the same next year? I think we as a firm are already preparing on the basis that certainly the interim audit that we typically do in sort of late February, March, early April, that certainly will be remotely delivered. And who knows next summer in terms of where we're at with the virus. I think the days of working on site at a client from 9 till 5:30 Monday to Friday, or in the office for that matter, are over. and GT are probably looking, when things do go back to normal, probably looking at a 50-50 split of clients' site time and home or office working. So, you know, if that's the case, we'll be discussing with the likes of Michelle and Mandy in terms of, you know, anything that can be done more efficiently on site. We make sure we do that on the couple of days that we're in Malton, and then the rest of the time we can be working from home or working from the office. And I think, you know, that's just something, I think, that not just local authority audits, I think all audits are probably going to be, you know, a mixture now of on-site work and not on-site. But when we do sign off, we normally have a debrief meeting with Anton and Mandy and Michelle, and we'll certainly be doing that again this year, either December or January time. And, you know, we call it a sort of a wash up, or a post-mortem is probably the wrong word, but you know, in terms of what went well and what can be improved. And obviously there's always things on both sides that can be, but, you know, the fact that we're in the position we're in now, sort of a month to 5 weeks ahead of the national deadline, is testimony, I think, to that engagement that we've got with Anton and his team.
Well, thank you for that, gentlemen. Any members got anything else?
Councillor Wren would like to speak, Chair.
Oh, Councillor Wren, yes, please.
Hello. It's only just to say, obviously, when I first got all this information, I looked and I thought, oh my goodness, when am I going to read all this? But when you look at it, and after it's just been explained now, I just want I think everybody's just been amazing during this time, and to have such a detailed account. I just want to thank everybody, because it must have been a dreadful task during this, you know, these unprecedented times. So just thank you for those details that we've been given.
Well, thank you for that. I think that might be fairly well appreciated by the people who do these number crunching on our behalf for the betterment and benefit of the community and the council. I'm with you in how you feel overwhelmed when it first comes, and then you get a briefing about what you've got in front of you, and it suddenly becomes clear as a bell. And that's the value of having these meetings on a regular basis with members. It doesn't fog up. And we do not get that fear factor of numbers being huge numbers in the first instance and coming at us thick and fast, and then they then become manageable, and then you get a comfort about that. Okay, it's not all going down the pan, and we are managing, and we are working. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing in a proper fashion, and I think that shows the professionalism of the guys in our offices and the guys that do the audit. So I thank every single one of you very much for your contribution to this. I think we can go to accept this document now. I think that's the position we're at. If anybody has a different view to that, please say so. Otherwise, I think we'll go and vote to accept this document.
Is that seconded, Chair?
As presented.
I'll second that. Okay. Sorry, Councillor Middleton.
Okay, Chair, we'll go to the vote. Councillor Braxton?
For.
Councillor Garbutt-Moore?
For.
Councillor King?
For.
Councillor Middleton?
For.
Councillor Oxley?
For.
Councillor Rain?
For.
Councillor Raper?
For. We've got a full house.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. We'll move on. I think if we can. Statement of accounts, item 7, 2019-20. It's over to you, Anton.
Yeah, that's so that's the one we've just done. That was the external auditors, and that one it's now it's
of course, it's journal audit.
you're getting all the auditors tonight. It's now the internal audit. So I think Max is around and Connor's around. Max, do you want to introduce this?
Thank you, Anton, and thank you, Chair. I'll just say a few words and then hand over to my colleagues. So Conor Munro is going to talk about the internal audit work we've done, and Jonathan Dodsworth is going to cover the counter-fraud work that we've done. A bit like the statement of accounts in the last item, we would normally have expected to present this report to you earlier than this, but in the circumstances, this is really the best we can do. As the Council's Head of Internal Audit, this is an important report in that it summarises the work that we've done, both in internal audit and counter-fraud, and it also includes my overall opinion on the framework of governance, risk management and control operating in the Council. So the opinion itself is shown in paragraph 6.2 of the covering report. And as last year, this is a reasonable assurance opinion. The report does go into some more detail and provides some more context for that opinion. But before I hand over to Conor, I'd just like to thank Anton and the rest of the Council management team for supporting and facilitating our work during the year. And where we have found issues, those issues have been accepted and addressed in a prompt fashion. So, it's been a good working relationship during the year. So at this point, I'll hand over to Conor, who's going to just go into more detail about the internal audit work that we've been doing.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Max, and thanks, Chair. And also just to echo what Max said there in thanking Anton and the rest of the senior management team for their support during the year. So really, to provide you a bit of an insight into this report, as Max says, it represents the conclusion of our work for 2019-20, and the key element really is our opinion on the Council's framework of governance, risk management and control, which, as Max said, is reasonable assurance opinion for this year. In arriving at that opinion, we don't place any reliance on any other assurance providers, and we've also provided one qualification to this opinion. This isn't something that is unique to Ryedale at all. It's something that we've given to all of our member councils, and that's perhaps unsurprisingly COVID-19 and the impact that that's had on the council's processes and controls, and effectively the impact that the pandemic has had on the risks that the council faces. As well as the covering report, the opinion is actually detailed in paragraph 7 on page 176 of Annex A. You'll see this recognises the good progress that the Council's made in a number of areas to improve its overall framework of corporate governance, and they're listed out in full for your information there. The report also features our progress on follow-ups during the year. So this is where we review previous internal audit reports and seek confirmation from management that our recommendations and agreed actions have been implemented satisfactorily to address the risk. And we're pleased to report that overall good progress has been made in that regard. We didn't identify any significant control weaknesses that we'd recommend for inclusion in the annual governance statement, which is pleasing to see. And you will also note that there are 2 audits currently still in progress. These are ones which were affected by COVID-19 and the disruption that this caused on the council. These are substantially complete. We expect to be able to conclude them in the coming weeks, and they'll certainly feature as part of the next update report to this committee. Just to kind of sum up in the round, there have been several reports that have featured in this particular instance, i.e. reports you've not seen before. And there, the strengths and weaknesses of those have been set out at Appendix 2 to the report. If you would like a higher level summary of what the work we've done in the year, then that's set out at Appendix 1, where we tell you the assurance level that we provided for each report and which committee we presented it to in the past, or the status if it's still in progress. I'll be happy to take any questions on this report before we move on to Jonathan's aspect on the counter fraud side.
Well, thank you for that. Anybody got any questions from the members?
Anton would like to speak, Chair.
Okay, Anton, thank you. You're muted, Anton.
Anton, you're on mute.
Sorry. And just saying, at the risk of this becoming a bit of a mutual loving, I just want to say thank you to internal audit as well. In the past, Stuart Cutts has been the audit manager for the council, and we now have Connor. So I'd just like to place some thanks on record for the work that Stuart has done over the years in Ryedale. In the actual report itself, just to highlight that we have had some discussion around where the council is. And we're pleased to note, as internal audit have, that the good progress that has been made, and in the report there are a number of examples of areas where that is the case, and a bit like last year with the external audit report, I think once these become embedded within the organisation, and we show that that progress that we've made is there for good. I would be expecting to see the assurance level go up a bit, but I think it's just worth noting that the progress is happening, and we will continue with that, and we will embed it.
Thank you, Anton. Progress is good, whether it's slow or not. Yes?
Councillor Braxton would like to speak, Chair.
Councillor Braxton, please.
Yes, I've got a question on. I've got a few questions actually. I've got a question on page 182, and that's under the payroll and personnel section, and it highlights in the key areas for improvement. It says that the pay run process has still not been completed. Now, from what I can remember, this is an issue that's still outstanding from last year, and I know that this is supposed to be obviously the responsibility of North Yorkshire County Council, but why hasn't this been sorted already? Why are there no actions? And if it hasn't been sorted by North Yorkshire County Council, shouldn't we bring it back into Ryedale District Council?
Have we got somebody to give an answer to that question, please?
I can give an answer. I think there's a bit of a timing thing here, because obviously these are audits that were done in the last financial year. My understanding is that those issues have now been resolved.
Okay, good. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. That's nice to hear. Well done for spotting, because I hadn't. Anybody else got any issues or points that they want to raise from members?
Councillor Oxley would like to speak, Chair.
Councillor Oxley.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just it's observation more than questions, so there's a question goes with it. When I look on page 176 at subsection 7, I think we all need to reflect on the list that's there as a reflection on what has been done. And the progress that has been made, and that's something we ought to be singing about. My other question is about the assurance level. When it's embedded, when we're sure it's going to work, it's fine for the internal auditors and indeed for Anton to say that. What's the view they have on how long it takes to embed these things?
Chair, if I can just give internal audit's perspective. So we do recognise that the council is on a journey. It's done an awful lot of work in the last couple of years to strengthen governance arrangements, and clearly as in terms of our future audit work, we will be looking to make sure that those changes and improvements are fully embedded. But obviously, it does take time for us to see the evidence of that happening and to be able to then provide that assurance. So, hopefully, if everything is going to plan and we find that all the actions have been implemented and we're seeing the sort of positive changes, then we would expect the assurance opinion to improve. So hopefully next year we should be in perhaps a different place.
Thank you. I'll just make a note for next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, Councillor Braxton would like to speak, but Gareth, I think, has got something to add to that.
Councillor Braxton first, please.
again, my question may answer itself because there's obviously been a delay in the report being delivered. But I was just a little bit concerned on page 186 regarding the comments of there being no lack of formal standby arrangements in Ryedale for dealing with equipment failure. That just kind of like worried me because at the moment when people are isolating and things like that, I mean, have we kind of got on top of this, or do you know, Anton?
Yeah, I can come in there. The safeguarding audit, it's probably worth pointing out a bit of context, and that is that we as management recognise that there were some issues within safeguarding, and we shouldn't be afraid to involve, internal audit to come in and help us just pinpoint what those issues are, and then that helps us, strengthen with positive action. So that's exactly what happened there. We recognised there had been some historic issues there. We brought in internal audit. They came out and gave us a report which highlighted those areas that needed improvement. And as it says, the actions, there is an action in place. We are expecting, there's been a prioritisation of those actions. So I'm not quite sure of the specifics, but I do know that all of those actions will be achieved and are on target to be achieved by the end of this calendar year.
Because can I just come in again? Because there is another concern that I did have was the fact that there's, no register for the training for either the members or the staff. So if there's no register, surely the priority should be actually kickstarting the safeguard training now. I mean, that also worried me a little bit that, there's no register there. So again, I hope that you can assure me that this, that these things are being looked at sooner rather than later.
Yeah, definitely. And if there isn't one now, there soon will be.
Right.
And just to add that we will be following up the action. So there's a detailed action plan with target dates in that, and as part of our audit work, we will follow up to make sure that those actions have been dealt with. So, and if they're not, obviously we'll be feeding that back.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
In terms of that register, that is in place. That is there now.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else got any points?
Chair, Gareth and Connor would both like to speak.
Okay, Gareth, carry on, please.
Thanks, Chair. It was just going back to Councillor Brackstone and Councillor Oxley's comments earlier around, governance and payroll. I would say it's just probably worth reiterating Appendix B of our ISA 260. Just jumping back, I think on page 152 in the pack over the sort of 4 or 5 pages there. Members who were on the committee last year will probably recall that we did raise quite a significant number of governance recommendations in our first year of audit, and obviously we've discussed those with the chief exec, with Anton during the year, and obtained evidence, where things have been implemented. And our findings on 152 to about 156 may be helpful just to reiterate to members in terms of the issues we identified in our first year, and where we believe the council is now. And obviously, as Talina mentioned, the vast majority of those we were satisfied had been implemented. I think our first one was around actually payroll controls, or lack of, what we saw in our first year, and they had been enhanced. One of the areas that we know that work's still ongoing is around, I guess, finalising sort of the SLAs and the overarching collaboration agreement with the county council, which we know is progressing, and that's another area that we'll make sure we're following up in our audit next year. So it was just really to add that along with our internal audit colleagues here, that there were quite a number of findings last year that it might just be helpful for members just to sort of read through that particular Appendix B of our report on the previous item, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Who was next?
Connor.
Connor.
I think Connor's just lost his connection.
Oh.
Oh.
Councillor Rain would like to speak, Chair.
Councillor Rain, please. Then.
Thank you, Chair. I just wonder, it was something that I was going to mention, but I think Councillor Braxton's kind of talked about it. But I'm very, very concerned as to on page 186 that it says the requirements are not currently built into contracts as far as safeguarding with children, young people, and adults at risk. These policies itself needs to be updated and so on. And that was my real concern when I read that. And I thought, why on earth have these requirements as far as, safeguarding for children and young people haven't been written into policies. And that is a grave concern regarding DBS and so on.
Again, can I come in there, Chair, just to give some reassurance. You're right, that's not been the case in the past. There's nothing we can do about that, but going forward, that is all taken account of, and that is all in place.
So, sorry, can I ask, is that in place now?
It is, yes. Yes, that's
right.
correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Is that okay for you? Is that a reply?
Yes, thank you very much.
Chair, Councillor Oxley would like to speak.
Councillor Oxley, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Great to hear the questions and the answers we've just dealt with. I think it really does show us the where we started and where we are now, and how that reflects on the people who've got us there. I'll say no more.
Thank you. I remember these from the early 2000s, and the reports then were horrendous as to how this council was working at the time. Inefficient and disjointed in many respects at that time. We are nowhere near that today. We're a lot slicker and a lot smoother and a lot keener, and take a more robust approach to this particular topic. And a lot of that is down to my predecessors as well. Any other questions anybody's got on this issue, please, on this particular minute? I'll make some progress and go to the next one.
Chair, Connor has rejoined and would like to speak.
Okay, carry on, Connor.
I would just to apologise for my unstable internet connection. I dropped out when Anton was mid-flow on the first question. I assume a lot of further questions were raised after that, and apologies for not being around. Hopefully it stays stable enough to continue on to the next item.
Okay, well, we all understand those sort of problems. We've all experienced them, thank you. Sometimes internet can play havoc with us. Right, we've had Treasury Management.
Chair, there's the counter fraud aspect that Jonathan would like to speak first.
Yeah, okay, counter fraud.
And thank you, Chair, and good evening, councillors.
Good evening.
The counter fraud annual report for 2019-20 starts on page 197 of your packs. I'm pleased to say that the counter fraud team met both of its annual targets last year. 55% of our investigations ended successfully, and £33,000 of savings were produced versus a target of £20,000. So that's really pleasing for myself and the team. Last year, the team completed work on the National Fraud Initiative exercise. No one was prosecuted, but 6 people received warnings about their conduct in relation to council tax support and council tax discounts. We also detected a scam that affected multiple councils in North Yorkshire, and we caught it in time, and £7,000 of loss was prevented. As well as the investigative work we undertake, we also do a range of activity for the council. We liaise with the Department for Work and Pension. We delivered cybercrime and fraud awareness weeks to staff within the council. And we included an anti-fraud leaflet to residents in the council tax billing. That's the extent of the highlights of the report, but I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you for that presentation, and thank you for that document. It was a fascinating read for me in one respect, although it was very, very tiresome because I've been reading before it. I was not the fullest of senses available to me to really appreciate it. So, has any members got any questions or issues they want to discuss on this particular one?
There's no raised hands, Chair, no.
Deafening silence, so I think we're all okay on the presentation and what you've given us. It's very, very thorough, so thank you for all that.
Thank you, Chair.
Right, seems I missed that one out. Where are we?
Are we moving with these recommendations, Chair?
I think we're going to move the recommendation. I'm just looking at my minute list as to what to do next.
Do you want me to read out the recommendations, or is everybody happy with them?
It would be useful.
Okay.
If you would, please.
The recommendations on this report are that members are asked to note the results of the audit and counter-fraud work undertaken in 1920. Note the overall opinion of the Head of Internal Audit regarding the overall framework of governance, risk management and control operating within the Council. Note the significant control issues identified through internal audit work in 2019-20 and note the outcome of the Quality Assurance and Improvement Programme and not the confirmation that the Internal Audit Service conforms with the public sector internal audit standards.
Well, I'm glad you said that, not me. I think if anybody wants to go and break those down into separate votes, I would be reluctant, but I would allow it. But I would think that unless anybody's got an objection, we can take them en bloc as one vote.
Yeah, let's move them.
Disagree with that.
Okay. Was that a second, Councillor Oxley?
It was. Let's move
Okay.
on.
Thank you.
We'll go to the vote. Councillor Braxton?
For.
Councillor Garbutt-Moore?
For.
Councillor King? Councillor King?
Again.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Middleton?
For.
Councillor Oxley? Councillor Oxley?
Councillor Oxley.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Rain? For. Councillor Raper?
For.
That's unanimous, Chair.
My vote of thanks to our participants this evening from the auditors and from the finance. And thank you to our team in ZARS for their contribution to all these number crunches as well. I think they've done a remarkable piece of work here. So I'd like to thank them all. We're nearly done, I believe. Right.
We're on to agenda item 9, Chair, Internal Audit, Counter Fraud and Information Governance Plans for 2020-21.
Pages 203 to 224. Who's taking this one for us to start with?
I can, Chair.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so again, I'll just say a few words and hand over to my colleagues. So this report sets out the programmes of work that will be delivered by Ryedale in 2020-21. Clearly, in normal circumstances, these plans would have been presented to you much earlier in the year, but that hasn't been possible. There are 3 elements. There's 3 programmes of work. There's the internal audit plan, which we are asking the committee to approve, and then there's the counter fraud work programme and the information governance work programme. Just to note really that obviously COVID-19 and the council's response and recovery plans to this will undoubtedly shape the work that we do this year, and is already clearly had an effect on our work. So at this point I'll hand over to Connor, who will just say a few words about the internal audit plan, and then Jonathan will pick up the counter fraud programme of work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Thank you, Chair. So as Max said, this sets out our programme of proposed work for 2020-21. As per the requirement of the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards and our charter with the Council. This plan is risk-based in the sense that we use principles of risk to establish the areas to focus our priorities on. The work that we'll perform in 2021 is detailed later in the report, but really the content of the plan itself has been initially through consultation with yourselves as part of the January 2020 meeting of this committee, and more recently with senior officers. We looked at various sources of information in pulling this together, be it the corporate risk register, other areas of known risks that we picked up from other member councils, sector-wide risks, and then looking at issues around materiality, complexity, previous audit results, etc., informing a plan which will allow us to form an opinion for the 2020-21 year. As Max alluded to, COVID-19 has already had a significant impact on the plan and will continue to do so. And the first element has been that we've reprioritised and diverted our efforts to helping the council in responding to COVID-19, so be it through guidance on procurement processes and then assisting with our counter-fraud colleagues in producing counter-fraud risk assessments. It's also involved support and advice along the way, and there's an allocation of time included in the plan for this. So the plan in total is 225 days, which is the same for 2019-20. In referring you to the full list of the audits in this year's plan on page 212 of your packs, you might see this and think that it looks pretty much like a traditional audit plan, but what you can be assured of is that we will be including the impact of COVID-19 in the scopes of all of these reviews, so that we make sure that we're picking up the inherent system risks that are there in any system of those kinds, but also how COVID-19 has changed the control environment or required a change in the control environment and the additional risks this exposes the council to. A final point to make you aware of is actually set out in Appendix 1. Earlier this year, in February, SIPFA released some guidance around audit opinions. This was really sort of a bit of a taking stock of the profession and understanding how we might achieve standardisation in audit reports for the benefit of committees and cross-comparison purposes. It's not by any means mandatory for us to adopt the new definitions, but we've chosen to do so, and we expect many other heads of internal audit in other sectors, in other areas in the sector to do this as well. We don't see this as a significant change in how we present our audit opinions. The most significant is that we'll be dropping from our previous 5 opinions to 4. If you have any questions around the content of the report and the audits that are included in this, then more than happy to take those now.
Thank you. Anybody got any questions or concerns or want to have an input on this from the members? Looks like it's a 0 on that, so I think we'll say thank you for your very well delivered report.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair,
would you put that to the vote now? Yes.
Chair, I need to present the counter-fraud plan.
Right.
For 2021, there are 105 days in the plan for counter-fraud. Our work is going to be a bit different to last year. As well as our usual work, we've been involved in helping the council prevent and detect fraud within COVID-19 grants to businesses. We've investigated situations referred to us by council officers who have had suspicions, and we've shared national intelligence because these grants have been the focus of criminal gangs, both national and international, trying to divert these funds from delivering their proper purpose, I suppose.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say on the counter-fraud plan, but I'll pass over to Max Thomas to present the information governance plan. I'm happy to take any questions after that, if you wish.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the information governance plan, there's 25 days allocated to that. That's the same as last year. It is really the function is to support the council in ensuring it's complying with the Data Protection Act and GDPR. So the programme of work is designed to sort of focus on the key areas in doing that. So again, very happy to take any questions on that plan.
Well, I have one, and I've not had an answer to this before. I've not thought about it before, really. You say you've got 25 days allocated to this. How do you come to decide the number of days that's required? Is there a breakdown? Is there a formula, or is it by individual councils? Is it by practice and experience?
There's no formula. It's really a matter of judgment about what's required, but also the level of support that the council is looking for. So the support we provide a similar service to a number of the other North Yorkshire district councils as well as the county council. That level of support does vary depending on the sort of level of input that the council requires. Ryedale, it is quite a high level strategic support package rather than us getting involved in a lot of the detailed work associated with data protection, particularly around it, freedom of information requests, subject access requests and the like, which are currently done within the council.
Thank you. Any members got any questions?
Chair, there's no raise. Oh, Councillor Oxley would like to speak, Chair.
Councillor Oxley.
Thanks, Chair. Just a comment rather than a question on what Jonathan said. Delighted that we've actually got involved in the grants. I know there has been a lot of concern expressed by small businesses about the way some of this has been working and some of the things they've reported going on. So I'm delighted that we've been involved in looking at it. Thank you.
Our local business have been very grateful for whatever has been able to access for them. I do know. And are we going to take another part of the agenda? Are we going to take a vote on this? I'm looking for my assistant to tell me this.
We'll vote on this, Chair, and the recommendation is that it's recommended that the internal audit plan for 2021 be approved and the counter fraud and information governance plans be noted.
Thank you.
So you move in that, Chair. Is there a second?
I'll move that, please. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll second.
So we'll go to the vote. Councillor Brackstone?
For.
Councillor Garbutt-Moore?
For.
Councillor King?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Middleton?
For.
Councillor Oxley?
For.
Councillor Rain?
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Raper?
For.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. We've had the update on the risk management now, haven't we?
We're now on to agenda item 10, Chair, Treasury Management Annual Report 2019-20.
Right. Page 225. Who's going to present that to us?
I will. I'll introduce this. I'll introduce this briefly, Chair, if I can. So this is an important report, our annual report. It's a factual statement in terms of how we deal with the money, essentially, that we have in our various accounts. It also talks about how we manage debt, but probably more predominantly these days, it's about that cash that we have, because members will be aware we do have fairly sizable reserves, and with that money we want to ensure that it is safe and stays in safe investments, and also that we get the best return from it as we can. Now, last year, the last financial year, it was a year of what we thought would be financial uncertainty, and with sort of fairly low interest rates, perhaps once there was clarity around Brexit at the time, perhaps with a small increase. Actually, during the financial year, interest rates stayed very low until March itself, when in fact they dropped, I think, twice within 3 weeks as in response to coronavirus. Despite that, we did well in terms of where the money is invested. To say it's all kept safe, but in terms of the returns that we made, which helps the council, you can see that at paragraph 619. which shows that actually we did a bit better than expected, and we from our interest made that we made £262,000 compared with an original estimate of £198,000. So despite those low interest rates and that financial uncertainty, we managed to get some good out of the way that we managed the money that we have. So that's all I really wanted to say about it. It is a factual report. It relates to the last financial year, and very soon you'll see a mid-term report to see how we're doing. I think that's going to come to Scrutiny Committee next month, and we'll let you know how it's going since then. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Anton. Anybody got any comments or questions on this? All very straightforward as far as I'm concerned.
Chair, Councillor Braxton would like to speak.
Councillor Braxton, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got a little question for Anton. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, it's paragraph 622, and I think you know what I'm going to ask. We've requested several times to look into the possibilities of obviously investing into the credit union, and I just wondered if you could give us a little update, or to see where we've got with that, if that is still a possibility. Thank you.
Yes, I can do. Yeah, and I was kind of half expecting it. The question. I think what we said last time was that we wouldn't see that as part of the Treasury management strategy, because there are certain rules around, where we can invest the money and so on. But that doesn't preclude the council from doing that as part of perhaps a capital strategy or use of reserves. We haven't progressed much with the capital strategy this year for a number of obvious reasons, but that's something that's still we can still do that, and happy to talk you through how that would be possible. And that will feed into the budget discussions. And I think actually in the final annual governance statement, which is part of the statements of account, we've highlighted, following the previous chair's discussion at the last meeting, around one of our key issues is around looking at the economy of Ryedale, and also, of course, the impact on people of Ryedale of the coronavirus, and whether that that might feed into there in terms of how we deal and how we help with people. But I would say it's not. I would keep it separate from the Treasury management strategy as such, just because of the various issues around that, but doesn't preclude the council from doing it in another way.
No, that would be lovely to hear about that another time. Thank you.
I will be interested in that aspect as well. Thank you. Anybody else got anything that you want to bring up on here?
There's no further raised hands, Chair.
Thank you. Shall we vote to accept this then?
Shall I reiterate the recommendations, Chair? They are that the Council has recommended to note the annual Treasury Management Report for 1920 and approve the actual 2019-20 prudential and Treasury indicators in this report.
Thank you.
So you move in that, Chair. Is there a second?
I'll move that. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Middleton. We'll vote. Councillor Braxton?
For.
Councillor Garbutt-Moore, I think, has had to leave.
I'm still here, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Garbutt-Moore.
Thank you, for.
Okay, thank you. Councillor King?
For.
Councillor Middleton?
For.
Councillor Oxley?
For.
Councillor Rain?
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Raper?
For.
Thank you. That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Are we on to item 11 now?
Yes, Chair. Update on risk management, which is also Anton.
Risk management. Thank you, Anton.
Okay, thank you. So again, just briefly introducing this report. I think, in terms of risk management, this is one area where we have made some progress over the past couple of years, and we do receive invaluable support from Veritao, and particularly from Connor, actually, in his previous role, as supporting us. So I'm pleased to say that that will continue. For me, risk management. There's always a risk if you pardon the pun. It becomes a bit of an industry, a bit of a tick box exercise, we have that is a risk. However, I think actually going through, as we do at Strategic Management Board on a regular basis, the corporate risk register, I think that's a really important exercise. We don't, or I certainly don't tend to get hung up on what colour a particular risk is or how you kind of classify it. What to me is important is that you've identified the risk, you've identified the consequences of it, and you've identified how you can mitigate as best as possible. And I think that's a really important exercise and useful. And we do have good discussions at management around that. So the risk register is there. It's the latest version of this.
Councillor Nathan Garbutt Moore.
And I've said in the past.
Is now exiting.
The risk register, I've said before, is very much a live document. It changes. It will be different next month and the next time we look at it. We hope, because we will have carried out some of the actions we've said, but also that we will identify any new risks. And if you look at this one, the very obvious one is that we now have a new number one risk, which is of course COVID. We didn't have that last year, and it's on there, and it's a big risk. And so that's a really important and useful working document for us. But it's here for members, both to show that we are taking risks seriously and undertaking actions to try and mitigate those, but also to involve members too, and to ensure that members see those risks and can contribute and can ask questions around them. So it's part of what we wanted to introduce a couple of years ago around transparency to members, involvement in those details, and well, there you are. It's without getting too nerdy about it, I think it's a fantastic document that identifies a lot of work that's going on.
Thank you, Anton. It is scary if you let it be scary, but it's an informative as to what's there and helps us to do what we need to do to stop it being scary for everybody else. I don't mind being scared on behalf of somebody else, so long as they then appreciate what we've done.
Chair, Gareth would like to speak.
Higher. Yeah, you can't get any higher than 5E, can you? Right. Oh, who wanted to speak, please?
Chair, Gareth would like to contribute.
Okay, Gareth.
Thank you, Chair. It was just to really give an external audit view on this paper, and we did touch on it briefly at the beginning of our paper that this was an area when we commenced as our role as external auditors back in April 2018 that we thought was a gap in the council's governance arrangements at that point, in terms of a lack of risk management arrangements and a lack of reporting, and we saw last year, sort of midway through, the new senior management team introduce this type of reporting, but because it hadn't been in place all year, this was one of the reasons why we qualified the VFM conclusion last year. So I think, just to reiterate, the importance of this document, and also the work that underpins it in terms of compiling it. As Anton said, it should be seen as a sort of living, breathing document with risk going up and down depending on how things are mitigated and controlled, and making sure that management are regularly updating it, but are also as Anton said, involving you as members in that discussion. And I think I've mentioned in the past at this committee, when the risk management and risk register came through to audit committee in the second half of last year, a good sense check for you as members is to, step back and say, are these the things that keep me awake at night regarding Ryedale Council? Are these the sort of key risks of this particular authority? And if things are on there that you would expect to be on there, that's great, and hopefully they're being managed and mitigated. If there are things you as members think are significant risks that aren't on there, then it's your role, I guess, to challenge management as to why X or Y or Z perhaps isn't on that list, and that all helps to contribute, I guess, to the governance arrangements of Ryedale, which, as we've said, internal audit have said, Anton have said, have moved on, quite significantly over the last 18 months in our view. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anybody got any questions so far?
Chair, Councillor Rain would like to speak.
Councillor Rain, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've tried really hard to sort of read everything and listen to everything. So forgive me if I have missed something, but can I just ask who decides what is a risk and what is the high, medium, low risk, etc.? Who decides on that?
Yes, I can. That's so we have risk management right through the organisation. So what you're seeing here is the corporate risk register. So this picks up the risks that apply right across the council, and that's a discussion that happens through Strategic Management Board, which is the Chief Executive, myself, Philip Spurr, Margaret Wallace, and Louise Wood. And so we go through that on a regular basis, at least 4 times a year, and recently more regularly. So we have that discussion, and the work that you see there is our, I suppose, our opinion. But we are keen that it comes to members to look through it and to take issue with it, or to challenge it, or to add to it. But risk management doesn't stop with that corporate risk register. We then have individual services putting together their own risk registers. And that's something that's still part of the journey, I have to say. That didn't happen until last year, and it's now happening. And now we're keen to ensure that, as well as identifying the risks, that each individual service deals with them and has actions in place. So those service risk registers are put together by the heads of service. That then comes to Strategic Management Board to have an overview. So that's how it works.
Well, thank you, because it obviously, it's so good to hear that things are in place with this, council that we have at the moment. Sounds even only a few years ago there was many things that needed sorting, so I'm pleased about that. Thank you.
The box on page 242 of the red, yellow and green little squares from A to B and 1 to 5 are a system called from a company called Covalent, who presented this to Ryedale Council at the early part of this century, in the first decade, and we've been using it ever since. And it simplifies on that coding of A to E and 1 to 5, and simplifies, in a sense, the risk. You identify what the risk is, and if we get anywhere near into the red, you've got a trouble, and you need to fix it and fix it fast. We aim to stay in the green all the time, but sometimes we stray into the yellow. And if you look at any of our, most of our policies don't get above C3, usually. If they get to C3, then we at that point take further actions. It flags it up that this is something going wrong here at this point. Attend to it, and I think Anton will either shoot me down or confirm on that front.
That's fine. That's fine.
Thank you. I've got it right then.
Chair, we have Councillor Oxley and Councillor Brackstone to speak.
Councillor Oxley, please. You voted. You voted Will. Press your button.
So I thought I'd lowered my hand, but here goes. Question. This is a really important document. It's a living document. I understand the way the Strategic Management Board operates. I'm not sure the way that members get involved in this is something that we give enough attention to. It's fine seeing reports and getting feedback. I'm not sure there's enough proactivity in how members can get involved. And I think that's something that we might just want to think about. I don't know whether Anton would like to pass a view on that, or whether I'm asking him a question he'd rather duck.
No, that's a fair point. So we are keen to involve members. So perhaps we just need to have a think about that to see whether we need to do something a bit more interactive rather than presenting you with a document and saying, here it is, what do you think? I'm open to suggestions.
Just a thought, Anton, if I may, sorry. I think that's absolutely right. It can be scary getting involved in this, but I'm sure there are things in it that we can all think of. Now, just some mechanism for actually, encouraging members to bring that forward, even if it's about having the confidence to bring it forward, might be something about.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine, Will. And I'm very, very happy and would be pleased if members wanted to get in touch, about the what we've identified, outside of the meeting as well. So happy to do it that way, but perhaps we need to look at a more formal mechanism where we have some kind of interactive discussion.
If I may join in at this particular point, in previous ONS committees, it used to be a regular feature on each agenda of what's gone wrong, where and how, through this matrix. Presented to on a very regular basis, at least every other meeting, we would have this on as an agenda item, of where the risks were, what they were, and how they were being dealt with, and that seemed to streamline an awful lot of the way that the council worked. So if you want to bring that back, I'm not averse to that. And looking at you, Will, on whether you would consider this as a requirement.
Sorry, John. I know there's other people waiting to get in. I just think there's a need for some sort of easier, more. I was going to say, whichever, user friendly. It's maybe something we need to think about in terms of member development and stuff.
I think we need to have that conversation.
What we do have to remember, Chair, is that. We've said it many times tonight, so let's not duck it. Some of us who've been on this council longer than others are dealing with a different council different set of officers than we used to deal with. So there's a huge learning curve here still going on.
Appreciated. Councillor Blackstone.
Yeah, I'd just like to pick up on again the safeguarding table and comments that myself and Councillor Rain have made earlier on this evening. That was obviously on a red, and now it's moved towards an amber, but it would be really nice to see that safeguarding pushed towards a green as soon as possible. And if we could just have that noted, that would be nice.
We can note that point. I don't see a problem with that. Anybody else got any comments that would bring forward?
Chair, Councillor Rain would like to speak.
Councillor Rain, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's basically, that was one of my questions, like who does discuss and sort out the risk management, and with it saying update on risk management, I think that in future maybe there could be something that we're printed, that we're given or before a meeting, so we can look at it, what's happening, rather than just handed this is where we are so far, so that we can all add to it or comment on it beforehand. Okay, thank you.
I can see that Anton's busy scribbling, so I think that point will be incorporated somehow.
I'm taking notes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else got any comments that they wish to bring forward at this particular point on this topic?
Chair Connor would like to speak.
It is an interesting one. Carry on.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add at this point that you might have seen or noticed from our internal audit plan that there's an allocation of days for risk management. The council has been very receptive to our work in that area, and we're sort of acting more on a consultative basis this year. So we have on the radar areas that Anton picked up around, sort of service plans, service risk registers, and the journey that they're on. And very much will be scoping that work with the appropriate officers during the year, so we can include elements of member involvement in that. So we can take that away and look to shape that as part of what we deliver this year.
I think members would be very appreciative of that input, or potentially having some input.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair.
Have we exhausted everything on this particular item and on the agenda?
Yes,
Anybody
Chair.
else wishing to speak?
There's no further raised hands at this moment.
Right, then can we vote so that we note the contents of this?
The recommendation is that the committee notes the contents of this report and comments on the format and details of the corporate risk register attached in Appendix 2.
Thank you. I'll move it.
Is there a second?
Councillor
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Middleton. We'll go to the vote. Councillor Brackstone?
For.
I believe Councillor Garbutt-Moore has now left. He's no longer with us. Councillor King?
For.
Councillor Middleton?
For.
Councillor Oxley?
You're muted, Councillor.
No, sorry, for. I'm prepping for the next bit, sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Rain? For. And Councillor Raper?
For.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Timetable of meetings is the next one, I think, is it? Yes.
That's correct, Chair.
Right. Hope everybody's had a look. I can't see anything wrong with it. Has anybody else got any comments on members on the timetable of meetings?
Gareth would like to speak, Chair.
Okay, Gareth.
Thank you, Chair. It was just to clarify which of those would be badged as audit, and obviously Talina and I would be keen to attend those. I'm conscious they're not all badged as audit committees, are they? So, not necessarily for now, but if Will or someone could just drop us a note and tell us which ones are the audit ones and which aren't, that'd be helpful. Thank you, Chair.
I think that can be accommodated.
Absolutely, Chair.
Thank you.
There's no further raised hands for any questions, Chair.
Right. Go to the vote.
The recommendation is that the Council is recommended to approve the timetable of meetings attached as Annex A to this report as a basis for working in 2021-22.
Chair, just to note this this one, because it's going on to P&R and on to Council.
Yeah, noted. Back to the agenda again, aren't we? Appointment of Corporate Governance Standard Subcommittee. We did have members, and we've had a change in chair and vice chair. We know who the members were before. Are they willing to continue? Councillor Braxton, I believe you were on that. I don't know about other members as well, whether to continue on that particular one or not.
Chair, shall I just give a bit of background to it?
It's a subcommittee comprising of 3 members of Overview and Scrutiny, with the drawn from across political groups as far as reasonably practicable. And it's basically asking for volunteers.
Yeah. So the Corporate Governance Standard Subcommittee is related to dealing with member complaints against elected members. It's not politically proportional, but as you'll see on the agenda, it does say about it being drawn from across the political groups as far as reasonably practicable. So last year on the subcommittee was Councillor Clark, Councillor Keel and Councillor Garbutt-Moore. Councillor Garbutt-Moore has indicated he'd be willing to continue, so that's one member potentially. So just, as you say, Chair, looking for volunteers to to fill the remaining places in the substitutes.
Any volunteers from our grouping tonight?
I don't mind volunteering.
Thank you, Councillor Braxton. Councillor Middleton or Councillor Oxley?
Sorry, was Councillor Clark on because he was chair of overview and scrutiny, or was it? Is it not tied in any way?
It's not tied in.
Thank you.
I'm happy to be a substitute, Councillor Raper.
Thank you. We'll note that. In that case, I'll put my name forward. If anybody else comes along and says they prefer to do it, I will drop out instantly. Okay.
So far I've got Councillor Braxton, Councillor Garbutt-Moore and yourself, Chair, with Councillor Middleton as substitute.
Okay, thank you.
You are able to have up to 3 substitutes, just in case people extend.
I'll happily substitute, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Oxley. You've got 5 to choose from there, then, haven't you?
Yeah.
Do we need to vote on that?
I think just for completeness, Chair, please. Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, we'll go to the vote. I lost connection for a second there. Councillor Braxton?
4.
Councillor King?
4.
Councillor Middleton?
4.
Councillor Oxley?
4.
Councillor Rain?
4.
And Councillor Raper?
4.
That's unanimous, Chair.
We're nearly there. I've decided at this time not to bring forward what I alluded to earlier on. I think it's surplus requirements at this time. I have no other business that I consider is urgent. Has any member anything that they consider is urgent or issues that would like to address? Otherwise, I'll call the meeting to an end.
There are no raised hands at this moment in time, Chair.
And I say thank you to everybody for contributing this evening and anybody that's been listening in and joining in. I hope you've been thoroughly bored.
Apologies, Chair. Councillor Oxley has indicated he would like to speak.
Councillor Oxley.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just exercising my mind about what this committee is going to be looking to in terms of what we're going to be scrutinising the next 12 months. It's a number of issues I think that are important, but not going to clog this meeting up with them. I think it's something we do need to sort out, though.
I agree with you. I have no burning ambition to go in any particular direction at all, in a sense. So I'm a blank sheet that needs to be scribbled on in that respect. So if you've got anything that you think that needs to be looked at and addressed, or a place that we could go, we could look at COVID. We could, but I think it's a minefield if we did, and I think it's slightly premature to go in that direction this time anyway. We don't know enough as yet, because I think this is here for the longer term, and there's an awful lot of misinformation going about, especially on social media, on this topic. But we could have a look at it in respect of how council has responded to it, and have we done a good job? Could we do it better? Could we do it differently? Could we be more effective? Have we been effective? And so forth. I think so far, from what I've heard, we've done an excellent job corporately from our professional staff and employed staff in how they've been drawn in to respond to this issue. So it's an issue that we might have to look at some point. Yes, Carrie. Councillor Baxton, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Just to point out, we didn't get very far with our our investigation into universal credit. Just due to COVID, that was something that was kind of dropped, and we were going to go to the job centre and do a bit more digging around that. So maybe possibly that is something that we could pick up.
We could have a look and see how it could be done in the first instance, because tripping around and going from office to office in person, I think at the present time would be a bit frowned upon, and secondly probably damn dangerous. So I'm not averse to doing that, but I think it needs to be looked at as how we do it in the first instance, and we'd have to have a talk with our officers in the first instance to see how we can facilitate such an investigation, because an investigation of any sort at this time is going to be different than it has been in the past, I suspect. Anything else, anyone?
Chair, Councillor Oxley would like to speak.
Councillor Oxley?
Yes, Chair. I have sent you a couple of suggestions on email when you were first appointed. I'm in no great desire to beat them to death now, but they are both internal suggestions. One was to have a look at the way the performance management system is being applied, given it came out of the RAIN report, and we maybe need to just make sure that we are happy with the way that is being applied, because it is the way that we understand whether the staff are being treated the way they should be. The second one was to have a look at on the back of all the information we've now gathered about local businesses, on the back of the grants and things from COVID, is to look at the way in which we are actually supporting and helping local businesses in a way that maybe we weren't before. I'm happy just to put those on the slot sheet, and maybe others can make suggestions as well, and we can discuss it next time.
We'll have more time next time, I think. Yeah, it's all been recorded. It's all been taken down and noted. So I think it won't be slipped out and missed and escape. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your contribution tonight. I think we can say that we've thoroughly discussed this issue tonight, and it was a mega-sized document. I'd like to see it shrink a bit if it's possible, but it's a matter of is it possible? And I think we might have to have a look at that as well. Would more presentations throughout the year, instead of one big one at the end, be an easier way for people to manage and get their heads around that information that comes forward? It's something I think we need. I would like to have a look at, because it was sending me doolally the other day, going through and looking at all the information there. At one time I actually fell asleep while reading it, and that's not like me. So something to think of. So thank you, everybody. Good night, and be safe. Keep safe.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, all the best. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. Bye.